Welcome back. It's been a year since Governor Evers first appointed former state treasurer Sarah Godlewski to become the next Secretary of State. Now, she took over the post from Doug LaFollette, the longtime Democrat who held that position. She took us behind the scenes of what the day-to-day looks like in her office. This is our state seal, and when I saw this originally, I thought it was some sort of antique display. Right. It is from 1881. But we actually still use this to seal certain documents. So just kind of in a general sense, you know, like when you show up on a Monday, right, or on a Friday like today, what's your day-to-day look like here? So my day is never the same. It's always really different, whether it's the work that we're doing to modernize the office. So one of our goals has been to improve the way that people get our services. So the work that we do to authenticate different documents, we're digitizing thousands of records, to our work with local clerks and me traveling the state. So it's never the same, but we are rolling up our sleeves and doing good things for the state. Yeah, and so I understand as you traveled kind of around the state this past year, talking to those local clerks, it's not necessarily been an easy time, especially on the election side for those clerks. What have you heard from them? So when I started and I realized that this office is supposed to have a strong relationship with clerks, we hit the road, whether it was in Superior or Janesville, meeting them. And one of the things that kept coming up over and over again was they are over capacity. Clerks are the cornerstones of their communities, whether they are running elections to the work that they're doing with records, vital records, running town meetings, and yet they are underappreciated and really under-resourced. And so what we're working on is whether it's through technology solutions to how we can make sure that we are setting the next generation to be interested and want to be clerks. I was recently attending a meeting and a clerk was sharing how they have to fill the void for a few of their municipalities that don't have clerks. And so we know how important it is to get young people who want to be on the front lines of local government and democracy, and being a clerk is a really great way to get them engaged. For the upcoming constitutional amendment, we have to publish that. So this is, for example, what is going to be on that constitutional amendment. We track it, we number it. But all of this is still manual. Your predecessor had been in office for like 4 decades or so. The office, I'm sure, has changed since then and changed since 2015. What's it like now? How has it changed in the last, decade or so? I think the biggest change has been, over the last decade, the staff that they've lost. So, whether it's a lawyer or an accountant or people, we process over, right now we're a record-breaking 16,000 cases we're supposed to be hitting this year. And these are adoptions, for example, for families that finally got notified that the child in Thailand that they've been wanting to adopt, they can finally do that. They can't do it without us authenticating their documentation. Or a business, I remember one of the first businesses I helped authenticate was a local cheese shop that was finally being able to sell their cheese overseas. And so they can't get this work from Minnesota or from Illinois. It has to be done by the Secretary of State of Wisconsin. And yet these services, like our resources, have been cut so severely. But despite that, I'm really proud, through grit, we've been able to address the backlog. We've cut our wait times in half, and we are right now digitizing all of these records so they're going to be at the fingertips of Wisconsinites, because we really value how important transparency is for good government. This is still done manually in our office. I think one of the a big reason on why we still do this today is because we don't want folks impersonating government documents or trying to act official in a way that they're not. A really good example of that, I think, that the state has seen recently is, this is, for example, the certificate of votes for the 2020 election, and we sealed this certificate of votes. It was signed by the Secretary of State, and then this is kept in our records and sent to Washington, versus the fake certificate of votes where there's no seal or signature, because this is not an official government document. I'm also fascinated by, officials in the executive branch, like Governor Evers, for example. He has kind of a dual purpose. He wears little 2 hats. He, commands the National Guard. If there's, like a forest fire or something, commands those resources. but also, advocates on behalf of Democrats as an elected Democrat in office. How does that, factor into your daily work as one of the statewide elected Democrats or appointed Democrats?
So our primary role in this office is to ensure truth, trust, and transparency. That being said, I think we're also working really diligently to educate people on what the role of Secretary of State is and how Democrats get things done. I mean, we've now been in office in about a year, and to be able to address a backlog, reduce our wait times in half, and now digitize records and create a program for clerks that are helping with whether it's getting clerk signatures and seals online to helping with their capacity issues. We're working to get things done. And I think in a time when you just see a lot of talk and no action, now more than ever, we need to be demonstrating to Wisconsinites that we put our heads down and do the important work.
Is that kind of what we're seeing from elected Democrats across the board? Is there anything different that you'd be doing than a Republican in your office would be?
I mean, I think when you look at, for example, Governor Evers, he's been getting a lot of things done. I mean, most recently with legislation that he signed, whether it was for supporting businesses up north to give them resources that were facing, our peculiar weather, to what we've been seeing with PFAS funding. I think it's really important that we are traveling the state, talking about what our role does and how we're actually getting things done for the people of Wisconsin.
And so we're coming up on that year. What's the next year going to look like for you?
So we've got a few priorities. I would say one of our top priorities is modernization of this office and how we can meet people where they are. So right now, if you want to get services, you have to drive to Madison. So somebody from Superior would have to drive to Madison or use snail mail. And in the digital age, we've got to be better at meeting people where they are. So we're working on creating more of an Amazon experience with customer service. You can check in, do certain things online, check in on your experience. We're also going to have a state-of-the-art database about our records because government shouldn't be a black box. And further, we've seen how some politicians want to rewrite history, and fair and accurate records are really important to telling the truth. And so we're going to make sure those records are available online. And then we are working on kind of economic security initiatives. How can we continue to advocate for the state of Wisconsin? And of course, our democracy work. At the end of last year, we called on Spindell, the Wisconsin election commissioner, to resign because he admitted to my office that he falsified documents in an attempt to overturn the will of the people. And we're going to continue to advocate for democracy because if we don't have democracy in our state, we don't have anything. And so this will, whether it's our work with clerks to civic engagement, civic education, that's also going to be an important priority.
Wonderful.